Imagine, if you will, standing inside one of those ancient Egyptian tombs, torches flickering maybe, and all around you, on the walls, this incredibly detailed art. It's charting out the whole journey to the afterlife. This art, it wasn't just decoration, was it? It was functional, a kind of map for the soul. And right there, overseeing it all, is this figure, Anubis. So today, we're doing a deep dive, looking really closely at the evidence from tomb art, from funerary texts. Our mission, really, is to unpack his different roles. Guardian, judge, guide. They're all connected. We want to see how the visuals tell that story. What really struck me going through the sources is how prominent he is. He's never just, in the corner. The sources emphasize he's a central figure. So where do we start visually to understand his importance?
Well, you start exactly where the Egyptians wanted you to start, his position. The sources are clear. He's identified as a central figure, often right in the middle of these crucial funerary scenes. And that's not accidental, obviously. His placement tells you everything about his importance. It sort of signals that the whole ritual, the whole journey, hinges on him.
And visually, he's immediately arresting. That very distinct animal head, sometimes called the jackal's gaze, it's his defining feature, right? That's the first thing you notice, theologically speaking.
Absolutely. That jackal or dog head is key. And it's not just random imagery. Think about jackals or wild dogs. They often hang around the edges of settlements, near cemeteries, out in the desert. Liminal creatures, you could say.
On the borders.
Exactly. On the border between the known and the unknown, life and death, civilization and the wild. So for the Egyptians, it made perfect sense. He's the natural go-between for this transition. He literally walks the line between worlds.
Okay, so his appearance itself tells us he's this essential intermediary. The sources mention the gateway to the afterlife. But it's not just a symbolic gateway, is it? There's a practical side, too, starting with the body.
Precisely. You connect the image to the purpose of the tomb. Anubis controls both the spiritual journey and the physical preparations needed for it. He's the first point of contact, established right away by his central position in the art on the tombs.
Right. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. He's not just standing there looking imposing, he's actively doing things, several things, actually.
Yes, and this is where we see this kind of fascinating aspect of his divinity. He takes on the embalmer's role. You see depictions of him in the process doing his job, mummification.
Which seems almost, manual labor for God, doesn't it?
It does seem a bit counterintuitive from our perspective, maybe. But it shows how deeply the Egyptians valued the physical body. Preserving it wasn't just practical, it was a sacred act, a divine act even.
That's a great point. So keeping the body intact, pure, it needed divine oversight. Anubis's oversight, he's like the master craftsman getting the vessel ready for eternity.
And once it is prepared, that vessel and the tomb itself needs guarding. Against grave robbers, sure, but also against less tangible threats, spiritual threats. So that leads to his role as the tomb's guardian. He's identified specifically as a protector.
Okay, so he preps the body, then he guards the tomb and its contents, covering all the bases physically. But then his focus has to shift, right, to the soul itself, guiding it.
Absolutely. Once the physical side is secured, he turns to the non-physical journey. The sources confirm he leads the deceased through the journey through the underworld. And you have to imagine the Egyptians saw this as a perilous journey, full of challenges, dangers, potential wrong turns.
And a simple walk in the park, then.
Definitely not. So having Anubis, this master of the borders, this figure who knows the territory, is your personal guide, that's the ultimate reassurance. He's like your spiritual GPS, making sure you don't get lost or attacked.
Wow. Okay, so that's a huge amount of work already. Embalming, guarding, guiding, hands-on stuff, vigilance, navigation. But all that preparation, it's leading up to one critical moment, isn't it? The judgment. Accountability.
Exactly. And this is where his authority really comes to the fore. We shift from the practicalities of the journey to the divine administration of justice. He's not just a guide now, he's the arbiter.
Yes, the judicial role. That really dominates some of the tomb scenes. His connection to the scales of justice is central, where the heart is weighed against the feather of Ma'at, truth, order.
Right. The sources are explicit. He is judging. Now, sometimes he's shown adjusting the scale, sometimes just overseeing, but his presence is what validates the whole proceeding.
So his demeanor, is it about impartiality, ensuring the rules are followed?
I think that's right. It's about ensuring the cosmic law, Ma'at, is upheld correctly. He might be seen recording the result, perhaps announcing it. His authority legitimizes the verdict, whatever it may be. He ensures the process is sound.
And that authority isn't just implied by his presence, it's reinforced visually, with symbols. The sources specifically mention the Ankh of Life being seen with him. That's one of the key symbols of power.
And that connection is fascinating, isn't it? Anubis, the god so closely associated with death and embalming, holding or being near the Ankh, the symbol of life, eternal life.
It seems like a paradox, but maybe it's the core message.
I think it is. It tells you he doesn't just preside over the end of earthly life, he controls access to the next life, to existence beyond death. The Ankh underscores that power.
He holds the keys, essentially. If the Ankh is one of his symbols, he's the gatekeeper, not just from life, but to eternity, or oblivion, potentially.
That immense power, that control, is actually why his presence was ultimately seen as reassuring, I think, not terrifying. For the person whose tomb it was, seeing Anubis there was an assurance.
An assurance that the process was happening correctly?
Yes, and that it was being overseen by the right authority. It becomes the promise of eternity. His involvement is seen as a blessing, not a threat. It means you're in the system. The divine order is functioning for you.
So he's not just some grim reaper figure. He's the facilitator. Stern, maybe, but benevolent in his function. His image carved into the tomb walls is like a permanent guarantee that the path exists.
Precisely. Without Anubis depicted there, centrally involved, the whole hope for a successful transition might feel uncertain. He validates the entire belief system for that individual soul.
Okay, so let's recap. When we pull all these threads together, he's the embalmer, ensuring the body is fit for eternity. He's the protector, guarding the tomb. He's the guide, navigating the soul through the dangers of the underworld. And finally, he's the judge, or at least the chief official, at the moment of truth with the scales.
That's a great summary. That multifaceted control, physical, spiritual, judicial, over the whole transition, that's what gives Anubis a lasting legacy. And the very fact we're discussing this based on art that's thousands of years old, but, well, the art remains forever. It speaks volumes about how vital he was to their worldview.
That permanence is really something. They weren't just telling stories, they were embedding cosmic truths into the very walls, right? For the soul to see, maybe? As a constant reminder on its journey, we can still look at it and feel that mix of hope and trepidation.
We can almost step into their mindset, yeah. Anubis is that essential link. He connects the messy, temporary world of the living to the structured, eternal world of the gods and the afterlife. He makes the transition manageable, understandable.
Which brings us back to that idea of his presence being a blessing, a confirmation of the promise of eternity. Now, if seeing Anubis there guarantees the process, the chance at eternal life, what does that imply about the need for a good life beforehand, before you get to those scales?
That's the critical point, isn't it? It raises a really interesting question about morality versus ritual. The blessing of Anubis guarantees the journey, and the judgment will happen according to divine rules. But it doesn't automatically guarantee a pass.
Right.
The outcome still rests on whether that heart, weighed on the scales, is lighter than the feather of Mahat. Eternity is promised as a possibility, but it has to be earned through living a virtuous life.
So the guarantee is in the fairness of the test, not necessarily in passing it. That's definitely something to mull over. The ultimate power lies with a God who facilitates judgment, but the verdict itself, that comes down to the individual's own life.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Anubis, the Eternal Guardian.
Always a pleasure. Until next time.